21 times what you would get from the preferred sampling site, which is the peripheral blood. So if the preferred peripheral blood is a 1, the heart can be as high, has been reported as high as 21 times that.
So are you saying that even in the publication cited by Dr. Gates, the heart blood diphenhydramine concentration was up to 21 times the preferred peripheral sample?
Correct.
Using the findings in the publication provided by Dr. Gates of the heart blood reading 21 times as high as the preferred sample, accounting for this disparity, what would be the preferred sample in this case where we have 2,400 nanograms per milliliter of diphenhydramine in the heart blood?
I have to use a calculator. I didn't. (2,400 nanograms per milliliter divided by 21). That would give you 114.
So let's break it down a little bit, okay? So here, the toxicology report showed 2,400 nanograms per milliliter of diphenhydramine in Abigail Lobish's heart blood, correct?
Correct.
Okay, so what you're doing is you're dividing that number by 21, correct?
Yes.
Because the article basically said it can be up to 21 times the amount.
Correct.
Okay, but you actually don't know if it's 5 times the amount, 10 times the amount, or 21 times, right?
Or more than 21. It could be any.
Okay, so you're just taking 21 to show what a more reasonable number might be.
Well, I was trying to select a publication that Dr. Gates deemed reliable and I deemed reliable, so I thought it was a good one for us to use.
Okay, so is 114 nanograms per milliliter level considered lethal in the publication provided by Dr. Gates?
No, not even close.
Compare that. Explain that to the jury, please.
You would need about 12 times as much diphenhydramine to get to a reported lethal level per the paper.
So the preferred sample, the femoral blood, actually has unreliabilities as well, correct?
Absolutely. And I forgot to explain the unreliabilities of the heart blood and the preference for the peripheral blood is to try to find out as close as possible to what the drug content in the brain was. And the peripheral, although unreliable, is considered more accurate than the heart blood, because what we care about is how much of the diphenhydramine was in baby Abigail's brain or, heart that would cause this, any issue.
Okay, first of all, and this question was asked of Dr. Gates, doesn't the blood go up to the brain?
Yes, but that's very misleading.
Why?
When you take diphenhydramine and many other drugs, diphenhydramine, well, first of all, the heart blood goes up to the brain, but for purposes of effect, we look at the blood coming back from the brain to see if it reached an equilibrium. But no matter what the blood drug level that is flowing in the blood, that does not correlate, in this case, to the amount of drug in the brain. So you can have a high blood drug level and a low brain drug level. And that can be caused by what's called protein binding. Proteins in your blood bind to the drug. When the proteins bind to the drug cannot cross the blood-brain barrier. And diphenhydramine is approximately 85% protein bound.
Why does it matter what the diphenhydramine concentration level in the brain is?
The concentration, because diphenhydramine, anywhere in the body, and just about any drug anywhere in the body, does not produce, death within hours or so. Even if you have kidney failure, you don't just die immediately. So it's heart, lungs, and brain. Usually with diphenhydramine, it is the brain, and because we don't have any evidence of a heart attack or anything, so it's the amount of drug in the brain that is most important. That's why in these cases, you're supposed to collect a sample from the brain and determine the brain concentration, because that's the organ of interest. You're also supposed to what's called bread loafing, or slicing the organs and looking at them to determine if there's evidence of a seizure or some other heart attack. None of that was done here. It was just, well, there's diphenhydramine in the blood. It must be manslaughter, which is absurd.
You mentioned heart, lungs, and brain, and you said it has to be one of those organs. Explain to the jury what you mean by that.
Sure. For death to be caused, it's always heart, lungs, or brain. One of those has to quit first, or two have to quit first, or they can all, you can have all of them fail. But those are the ones that cause death. If you have diphenhydramine circulating in your legs or your arms, or that's not going to make a difference. What makes a difference is what goes to the brain.
And it's your understanding, based on your case review, that a brain sample of the concentration amount of diphenhydramine was not taken, correct?
Correct. And that would be, to get a complete picture, you would absolutely have to have that as well as other samples tested.
So, with all of this considered, what is your opinion of the reliability of the cause of death determination being based on heart blood diphenhydramine level in this case?
The only evidence that diphenhydramine that supports the medical examiner's opinion that diphenhydramine caused the death was its presence. Forensically speaking, the bottom line is we need to know if a finding is coincidental or causal. Did it cause the event, or was it a coincidence? And that needs to be fleshed out. But in this case, there is a very unreliable blood sample, per the literature that both Dr. Gates and I agree on, extremely unreliable, and that's all that was used to say that's how the baby passed away.
Mr. Okorocha, I want to ask you about a metabolic disorder. If a person has a metabolic disorder that causes the body to have limited or no ability to break down diphenhydramine, what does that do?
And I'm going to object here. This is well beyond the scope of this witness's qualifications. Sustained.
Are you educated in metabolic disorders and how the body breaks down drugs?
Yes, absolutely.
And what is your background regarding that?
That is part of my formal graduate level education in the what's called the pharmacokinetics of drugs. The breakdown of drugs is different in every single person, and there's a lot of genetic differences even by people from different races or countries.
Well, could you explain the education that you went through in order to form an opinion on the question that I just asked?
So a huge part of pharmacology and toxicology is the metabolism of drugs. So it's absorption, distribution, metabolism, and elimination. The metabolism is the most important because it can drastically affect the amount of drug in a person's system, whether it's too high or too low. So you monitor metabolism for various reasons. One would be to make sure the person doesn't have a lot of